Welcome to Monday through Sunday. I'm Logan.
I'm Sanam.
And I'm Lane. We're best friends, the founders of Blossom Brands, and the hosts of this podcast.
We can't wait to take you behind the scenes of running a 7-figure agency with our best friends.
We're sharing our mistakes, our lessons learned, and giving you tactical advice to build the career, the business, and the relationships you dream of, and a life you don't need a weekend to escape from.
So let's get balanced and let's get down to business. Welcome to the show. Good morning. Sanam, how's our energy today?
It could be better.
Why so? Please elaborate.
I just feel like it's one of those days where, I got back from Dallas a few days ago and I just decided to do everything and anything I could think of in these past 2 days that I've been back, which is great for my productivity. But then I woke up today and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sore. I'm so tired. I realized that I haven't taken the time to stop and slow down and do nothing, which I need to do nothing to allow my body to recharge, especially in my luteal phase, which if you're not a cycle syncing girly, your luteal phase is the 14 days leading up to your cycle. And I am 4 days out, which means I am encroaching on the PMS time period. So lucky you, Lane, you're stuck with me today.
Well, I feel like the topic of today is relevant because to get yourself to really slow down, I think that you are going to need to really set boundaries with technology in general, not just your phone, which is what we'll be talking about today, but probably TV, iPad, all of the things to get yourself to actually slow down and take a mental break.
I actually don't struggle with because I read my Kindle so much, which I don't consider technology because it doesn't have a strong blue light. An iPad I don't use. So it's definitely with my phone, which is makes it 10 times more relevant. But how's your energy today?
My energy is pretty good. I had a productive morning. I feel like I went to sleep last night being I have all these things I need to do in the morning and thought it was going to keep me up. But I actually slept okay. We got over 7 hours and I woke up this morning and just knocked out the things that I needed to do so I could get over that anxiety. And now I'm okay, I can take a deep breath.
Should we take a deep breath together right now?
I think we should.
Breathe in for 4. Hold it for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold it for 4. Helps every time, I swear.
Thank you, Sanam Ganayan.
Of course, Lane Lipo. All right, so today we were talking about boundaries from technology, which we kind of touted in our episode that we did together a few weeks ago. We're really excited to dive into this topic because ultimately when we check our phones, our brains release an amount of dopamine that gets us addicted to want to continue scrolling. And that endless scroll is truly an endless pit of scrolling. You can sit on your phone and just scroll endlessly. And what I like to call my robe time, which is post shower, sitting in your robe with your hair in a towel on your bed, when you're just I'm going to sit for 5 minutes while I just chill and decompress after my super hot shower. No, I find myself 2 hours later having scrolled and don't even remember what I scrolled over, versus if I had a conversation, if I read a book, I would recall what I just consumed in that moment. But with scrolling, I can't because it's just dopamine after dopamine when it's just hit after hit after hit.
So yeah, and I think the biggest problem about that dopamine hit is it's temporary and it eventually leads to a letdown. So the high is really high, then the low is really low. That feeling that you get at the end of the night when you've had a long day of technology and overly stimulated by screen time. So whether it's work, whether it's being on your phone a lot, whatever it is, where you feel super drained, but also super wired.
Yes.
There's this conflict in your head. You're I'm wired, I can't sleep, but I'm so drained, I can't do anything. And that is the direct reflection of this dopamine hit and this really big letdown from it.
I also don't know if other people are super sensitive to blue light as I am, but between the constant blue light exposure to my eyes, in addition to the dopamine, I feel it's just a recipe for disaster. But even if I check my phone for 10 minutes before I go to sleep, that blue light really makes a difference. So we can talk about ways that we take the time to really disconnect from technology. But I'm very passionate about this topic because I feel Lane, we really dealt with the trials and tribulations of boundaries with technology, specifically our phones, nonstop over the past probably 5 years.
I think that also working in the industry that we work in makes at least me so much more just aware of how often my phone is trying to suck me back in. So working in marketing and knowing how brands are utilizing social media and other platforms to give you notifications, to opt in, to pull you back in, when at the end of the day, that is just causing you more screen time. And I think that as consumers, we have to be aware of it and we have to intentionally try to opt out and set ourselves up for certain time periods where we are completely offline where we aren't accessible, so that brands like that they're just trying to make money off of us, that really at the end of the day, like we need to prioritize our mental health and our physical health, and having that healthy boundary, I think is really important to do so.
True. Shall we dive into our list?
Let's do it. Okay, so today, this is going to be a little bit different of a format because we're going to try to make this interactive. So Sanam and I are going to go through a list of things that you can update on your phone to create boundaries with your phone that you might have never thought of. Maybe some of these you're already doing, but others you might not even know that there is the possibility to be able to do this on your phone. So we're going to go through, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give you the specific steps as to how to opt in and make these changes on your phone. So when we talk about something, feel free to go ahead and hit the pause button, make these changes on your phone, and then play again, and we'll move on to the next one together.
Accountability.
All right. So step number 1, do an app inventory check. So if you are like me, you might have never in your life since you got your phone, like gone through and actually deleted apps. This might not seem important, but I feel like with having an overwhelming amount of things to opt into, it opens the door to more distraction. So how you do this is you hold down on your phone and then you just delete out apps that you don't use. And you probably have hundreds of apps that you didn't even know that you had on your phone. What I'm notorious for doing is organizing my apps, but not deleting them. Like I'll put them in folders and try to organize what I want on my first page versus second page versus third page. And then I have a fourth page full of things that are completely irrelevant that I can totally get rid of. So I'd say that just like first go through and get a clean slate. Get only the apps that you actually want on your phone. Start there. And then I think the next step in this challenge is going to be what Sanam kind of said at the beginning. Delete apps frequently that you think you're spending too much time on. So Sanam right now is like, I'm going to delete Gmail for a week and only use it on my computer. I have to opt in on my computer if I want to check my email. Or I'm going to delete it every night at 5 p.m. and I'm going to re-download it every day at 9 a.m. Whatever it is, I think deleting apps and re-adding them can be a strategy that you opt into. But I'd say the first step is to just do an inventory check and delete out all of the useless apps that you no longer need. While you're at it, also go look at your subscriptions and make sure you don't have any live subscriptions that you're paying for that you don't know that you're doing, because I always forget to cancel my like free 7-day trial. And then I'm like, oh, I just paid $67 for something that opted me into an annual subscription that I had no idea about.
Rough times. Okay, next is screen time. So I love the widgets that iPhone allows you to set on different parts of your screen. So I use the screen time widget on my home screen. I think it's so important to be reminded of your daily screen time because it's easy to basically spend 11 hours and you're like, oh, I just spent 3 hours on my phone. But then actually, like you see in like my bottom left corner of my home screen that I spend 10 hours on my phone. That's always a big indicator to me, like, okay, I need to actually take the time to put this phone away. So it's really helpful to just kind of gauge where you are throughout the day, especially if you're trying to keep track of different like time limits. So next is setting app time limits. So I set app time limits specifically for Instagram and TikTok together. I feel like those are the two apps where I really struggle with like overusing them throughout the day. Cause like obviously my text and my email take up a lot of time, but I don't want to put any controls on my text messages. At least I'm not there yet now. But being able to set up time limits, now, I don't always abide by them. It's very easy to overcome them. You just basically kind of set ignore for like the next hour, just ignore indefinitely throughout the day, enter your password and the notification goes away. But again, it's like that widget that we talked about for screen time where it's that reminder that gets in front of your face like, hey, you sure you want to continue scrolling? So if I'm sitting in my robe time scrolling and then I hit my hour and I'm like, okay, this is a sign that I actually need to get up. It's a reminder. Whether or not you use it, a reminder is better than nothing. So I always recommend inputting that. And how you do that is you go to settings, screen time, and then app limits. And then you can set up custom limits for each of the apps that you want to use.
I have a question about this one. I have to admit, in prepping for this episode, I realized that I've never done this before. So I was like, okay, let's go set one up. I went and I looked at like the apps that I spend the most time on this morning when I was prepping for this. And I was like, okay, if I spend this many hours a day on average on Instagram or on Gmail, I'm going to set up a reminder that is 20% less than that. So that's kind of how I went about trying it out for the first time, if you want to take that that strategy, but whatever works for you. But so I haven't gotten to the point where like
you've been hit with a reminder.
I've gone over it and it gave me a reminder. So I'm just curious, what does it do?
Your whole screen goes black. It takes over and it says screen time reach. And then you can basically just like exit out of the app, or it'll say like ignore limit, add 5 minutes. And it's kind of like an alarm. Like you either move on or you snooze it essentially.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm excited to get my first like screen time limit. So I
hope you don't.
Well, yeah, I hope I don't, but I also just like kind of want to see what happens.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
All right. Anything else to add about screen time before we jump into my favorite of these topics, which is notifications?
Ready to go into notifications.
Okay. So notifications was something that with my phone at the beginning of last year, 2023, I was like, okay, I want to figure out a way to like not have my phone like tell me when it wants to engage with me. I want to tell my phone when I want to engage with it. So I went through and I turned off all notifications on every single app on my phone. So I was like, I want to completely audit my notifications and start over. So how you do that is you go to settings, you go to notifications, then you click into each individual app and you toggle off allow
iPhone
notification.
needs to set a feature where you can just do all of them.
I swear they make it hard on purpose. You have to click into every single one, which actually took me so much time. And I was like, this is so annoying. So I started with everything off. And what that basically does is if you've ever put your phone on do not disturb before and you don't get any notifications, that's what you're doing. You're setting yourself up to get no notifications, even if things are happening on your phone and you're not on do not disturb. So what I did is I started there. And then throughout the days, throughout the weeks, I realized I was like, okay, there are certain things that I need to get notifications from if I'm not on do not disturb. So whether I'm like, okay, I want Slack to ding, even if it doesn't show up what it says, I just know that I'm getting a lot of Slacks. If I just want it to vibrate during the day, so maybe I'll set the hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. where I want it to ding. So I know I'm like, oh, there's a conversation going on that is having a lot of activity right now. I'll opt in when I want without it telling me exactly what is being talked about. So you can kind of figure out how you want the notifications to integrate back into your life. But I definitely suggest if you have the means to be able to do so, go ahead and turn off all your notifications and slowly turn certain ones intentionally back on.
I wish I took that route. I did the selective notifications, which right now I've truly mastered it. It's basically just like text, not even emails, and Slacks that only mention my name. And then any DoorDash or delivery service where I need to get notifications for.
Okay, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that would be the first one with the notifications. The second, which we kind of touched on, was leveraging do not disturb and scheduling it, as well as having custom do not disturb. So to do this, you go to settings, then focus. And then I would start with your sleep schedule and set hours where you want your phone to basically be asleep. This is like, we're going to get into the fact that like really your phone should just like be in a different room and you shouldn't sleep near your phone anyways, but you can take baby steps and start with just like setting your phone up for its sleep hours too. It should have its own sleep schedule.
Does yours make the little baby twinkle sound when it goes on sleep mode?
No. I don't have my phone like ever make noises. Oh my God,
mine goes on. It does the dun, dun, dun. Like it's like a little thing, a twinkle over a baby's like crib.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. I didn't even know you could do
every
that.
night.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, whatever that looks like for you, I think I have mine set from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. To clarify the different settings that you can have when you're setting your phone up for a schedule on Do Not Disturb, like you can set up a sleep schedule, a work schedule, a focus schedule, so that your phone is automatically just going to go on Do Not Disturb for those hours. So if you opt into sleep and you say from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., I want my phone, regardless of what my notifications are set at, regardless of like anything going on, like I don't want it to notify me. So if you have your phone like closed off and like turned off, it won't pop up. Nothing will happen regardless if people are calling you, texting you, emailing you, whatever it is. So it just auto opts in to Do Not Disturb. However, you can also set up custom Do Not Disturb settings. So I feel like Sanam, you do this. I actually don't use this. But Sanam, do you want to explain what you use for work for your custom Do Not Disturb?
So Do Not Disturb schedules, you can set up what notifications are allowed to come through and notifications from specific people are allowed to come through or aren't allowed to come through. So for my sleeping one, for example, I make it so one of my family members can reach me in the middle of the night if needed. I always have anxiety. Like, what if someone needs to reach me? Like, and I'm sleeping and like I live alone and someone can't get to me. So the way I eat that eases my anxiety is my sleep. One person that is trusted in my family can call me.
Do they know that they're that trusted person?
No, I
so
need
that
to
if
tell
someone
them.
needs you, it's like, Nusha, you're the one that has to call
No,
me.
I need to tell them. It's Ramen. I need to tell him. He's the only one that hasn't ever, I mean, of my core family, that hasn't ever abused.
I was going to ask, is it strategically chosen based off of who you know will not call you?
Absolutely. Because when my family has traveled, I put them on emergency bypass so people can get through regardless of any notifications, any snooze that you have on your phone. And then I've forgotten to turn them off. And I have gotten calls that have disturbed me at many hours of the night, of the morning. And so I have taken away those privileges for those people. And I feel like my older brother, Raman, is the only person I can trust to call me if it's an actual emergency.
There you go. Smart. I didn't know you could do that. And then also just, I feel like everybody should know this, but for those that might not, if you you can set up these schedules, but you can also at any point turn your phone on Do Not Disturb. So if you just from the top right corner of your phone, scroll down, you press that focus button. And that is how you can do it just whenever you want it without having a schedule that opts into every day. Like I very often will just turn my phone on Do Not Disturb for the whole day because I just want it on, and then I'll forget and leave it on for a couple days. And then, so now I'm just like, you are impossible to get a hold of. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Sorry.
And it's nice because if you have an Apple Watch too, when I put my phone away, if I'm going into a yoga class, but I have my watch on, I can just press the side button and toggle on a Do Not Disturb so no one can reach me while I'm in class and my watch won't buzz. So something to consider if you do have that paired watch.
There you go.
Next thing is grayscale. We have not done this one personally. I feel like it's the most extreme one.
I saw this on our list and I was like, what
I've
is
seen this so many times on TikTok.
This is not the thing where it just like changes the colors, like the background to black, is it?
No, grayscale is like when your phone is essentially like an old school Game Boy, a Kindle.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to do it. Okay, so what do? Go to settings.
Yes, you go to settings, accessibility, display and text size, and select color filters. And then you enable color filters and set it to grayscale. It's quite scary. Every time I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it, and I chicken out because every time I see it on TikTok, it looks so intense, but it makes you not have a desire to pick up your phone because all the colors are getting your attention.
This is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love this. Yes. I'll let you know in a week what I think. I'm adding this to my one of my January challenges is 7 days of grayscale starting right now.
Please take a screenshot so we can post it on our stories when this episode drops because like I feel like people don't understand it if they haven't seen it on TikTok.
Also, my new background on my phone is really precious. Did you see the picture I put in the shared album?
I haven't looked in the shared album today. I've been on Do Not Disturb all morning.
Good job.
I know. I woke up PMSing and I was like, I don't need notifications right now. Okay. So those were the things that like you can do in terms of settings on your phone. But there are also boundaries that you can implement daily and weekly to also help separate you from your addiction to technology.
Yeah. So the first ones that we just talked about, that's like having your phone do the work for you. Now we're going to talk about how you can actually do the work and
what a good way to put it.
And how you can continue to opt into making the right choices like we talked about at the beginning of this episode.
Okay. Number 1, delete the apps that give you the most anxiety or that you spend the most screen time off your phone. So basically, for example, we talked about how some of us are always taking a social break. I think quitting things cold turkey is the first approach that people take when it comes to taking a social break. And yes, that is really healthy if your addiction is way too aggressive. But for us, I don't think that's necessary. Like, I never think it's like, oh my God, so intense. It's just, I need to limit the amount of time that I spend on it. So first, I delete the Instagram app. Second, I commit to checking Instagram for like 2 minutes a day on desktop on the computer. It's like way less easy to like look through stories and everything because you're like manually clicking versus using your finger. So like you naturally want to spend less time on it. B, if there's something that if someone is telling me to check and I'm on my phone, that means I'll have to go to Safari, log into Instagram, manually have to remember my password and then scroll. And then Instagram is just not as good of an experience as it is with the app. So whenever I do that, I always end up cutting my screen time by at least 2 hours when I delete apps that I am overspending time with on my phone. So that's typically social apps. I mentioned Instagram, but also TikTok is a big one. But PSA to anyone on TikTok that is a creator, it will delete all of your drafts if you delete the app.
Oh, yeah. And if you want to take this to an extreme level that I did last year, go ahead and deactivate your whole social media handle for however long. And I did this last year, which was going to be for about a month or 2 months. And it led to, I think, like a 10-month hiatus from like not even having a personal Instagram. And it was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. So I would say that if you're kind of at a point in your life where you're like, I need a reset. I need to figure out like what I want. And I don't know like where I want to be and what I want to be doing. Like this is a great way to go ahead and hit the reset and be like, all right, I'm going completely the opposite of what Sanam said, not going cold turkey, like more extreme cold turkey and just deactivate.
It's true. That was quite a time period.
And now I'd say it's just part of my like regular monthly routine is probably once or twice throughout the month for like a 3 to 7 day period. I delete whatever apps. For me, it's Instagram and TikTok. Like those are the ones that I'm like, I just need off my phone every once in a while because like those are the ones that when I open my phone, I just like automatically click without like mentally trying to click it. So identify what those are for you. And I think it's a really healthy practice to just be like, I need a couple days where I can't just opt in. And it's not like I'm like, oh, I like need to be off of Instagram. It's like, I'm just setting myself up to not be able to subconsciously just like open and click. And I think like, it's also interesting to see once you do that, what things you start clicking on as like the next step. For me, it's like Zillow. Like I'm always like, oh, I guess I'll just like look at real estate for fun because like real estate just is like fun for me to sometimes I'll literally just be looking in like the area around where Sanam lives at real estate. And I'm like, Sanam, this place looks cool. Like, and she's like, why are you looking at real estate in LA? I'm like, I don't know because I deleted
And then
Instagram.
like I'm about to re-sign my lease, like literally my head's swelling. It's like, wait, but you should check this property out. And I'm like, this looks really nice, but like I can't.
It is true. The next one we kind of discussed for a second, but I think that this should be the like number one thing on everybody's list. I think that everybody should sleep with their phone in a different room. This is something I'm really struggling with right now because I have a newborn and my monitor is on my phone, so I can't do this right now. And it's not to say that I always do this, but I do really make it a habit to try to get myself to sleep with my phone in the office in my house like 80% of the time. But since Evan got here, I have not been able to. So I'm trying to like set up new boundaries where I'm like, I can't look at my phone unless it's just to check the monitor. And especially if I get up to feed him in the middle of the night where I like don't open any apps because like I know that it just like sets my brain into a spinning cycle if I even look at like one thing. But I really think that like everybody should, instead of just having the sleep schedule on their phone where it turns it on do not disturb for certain hours, not only sleeping with your phone in a different room, but being like, I'm not going to even like pick up my phone from 9 p.m. till 7 a.m. Like it's going to be in the other room and I'm going to be completely disconnected. We just as human beings in this day and age are so addicted to our phones, like not even looking at it, not even being on the screen, but just touching it, knowing where it is, picking it up just for the sake of holding it in your hand to walk from one room to the next room. We cannot be separated from our phones. So I think like if you can just not touch your phone for 10 hours a day, even if it is the 10 hours that you're asleep, you're in bed, that like really helps you break this barrier of addiction. And I'd say that this also can tie into like, how can you create new habits to, keep yourself busy during those hours? But for now, I'd say just like, try it. Put your phone and charge it in a different room. Have your charger not next to your bed. Like get rid of a charger next to your bed.
Buy an alarm clock.
Or get your body on a daily cycle where you don't need an alarm clock. I don't think I've used an alarm clock in 6 years. Like I've never set an alarm. Like even if I have a flight that I have to be up at 5 a.m. for, my body just like knows when it needs to wake up.
Lane is like a whole other different level of human, you guys. Like
my husband actually is who got me on this. Like he never used an alarm and I'd be like, you're crazy. Like we need an alarm. And he's like, we always wake up before our alarm. Why do we need that like chaos to like get us out of bed? And so I was like, okay. So I gave it a try. And now it's just like, once you realize your body just like our bodies are so intuitive. They know what they need to be doing like at every hour of the day.
That's great for you.
Well, you have to like go to sleep at a certain hour. Like, I mean, I go to sleep so early, so I give my body enough sleep to be able to wake up early enough. But I really think that our bodies are smart enough and like intuitive enough to be able to do it.
For those of you whose bodies are not intuitive enough, which is probably 99.5% of our listeners, I would recommend the Hatch alarm clock. It is not cortisol inducing. It is calm. It is great. I speak about it more in episode 6, but it is just the best investment of an alarm clock. It has a light and an alarm, and especially in the winter, the light really makes a difference to get you up in the morning. So highly recommend. And hopefully we'll all make our way up to Lane's intuitiveness.
And I guess I will say that I am a very light sleeper. So if you're a light sleeper and you can get yourself to go to sleep early, then I think you have a chance of not needing an alarm clock.
Boom.
Give it a try.
All right. Last but not least, Lane, I feel like you kind of just touched on this as well, but replace tech habits with new habits that are screenless. So for example, I have been wanting to get back into morning pages. I love morning pages so much. If you haven't read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, it's basically a 12-week approach to tapping into your creativity. And she is the creator of the morning pages, which is basically a mental brain dump that you put on physical paper, not on anything digital, and get your thoughts out for 3 pages. It doesn't have to be organized. It doesn't have to be written word. It can be a drawing, whatever. Just get your thoughts out on paper. And so one thing that I do is I put my morning pages journal on my nightstand directly like where my phone would be. So instead of my phone being the first thing that's closest to me, it is my journal. So I highly recommend thinking of ways that you can swap out things that would normally involve technology. So I also mentioned earlier, instead of TV at night, I read my Kindle. I don't consider my Kindle technology because it is kind of that grayscale, like very low light type of approach, and it's reading. So there's no distractions of notifications or apps or things to like give me that dopamine hit outside of like maybe a really good smutty scene that I'm reading. But basically, Kindle is the best thing for right before you fall asleep. I feel like, and I always tell Lane this, I'm going to make an intention this week, no TV before bed, just Kindle before bed, because my sleep score always sees the difference when it comes to, how I fall asleep.
And this is something that Sanam really turned me onto, is Kindle before bed. And I try to sometimes choose a really boring book to read when I go to sleep. So it literally makes me fall asleep. Like right now I'm reading the Elon Musk autobiography, and like I'll read about 3 pages before I'm like, okay, this is so boring, and I'll just like fall asleep.
I'm currently reading Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which is just like a smart young adult book. A little bit of a different vibe.
Does that put you to sleep?
Yeah, I like reading fiction before bed, and I like reading nonfiction in the morning.
Interesting.
I just feel like if I'm reading nonfiction, then I like try and tie those things into my life, then it really gets me a little too deep in thought. Whereas like I'm reading a fun story, I'm watching a show, essentially.
I don't even put mine off of my bed. I literally just like drop it in my hand and like close my eyes. Like I like within like a second, I think I'm asleep when I'm reading a Kindle, because like everything is set up for me to sleep. And then like halfway through the night, I'll like roll onto it and like put it on the ground.
I love it. Kindle's the best.
All right. Well, before we go ahead and wrap up for the day, Sanam, do you have any action items that you want to share?
Yes, my action item is to try out at least one of the tips that we mentioned. I feel like we dropped at least 10 good ones, and different ones apply to different people. So let us know which one you try and comment on our latest Instagram post, keeping us in the loop, because we like to know which ones are most realistic, which ones are we the most crazy for doing, kind of like Lane doing grayscale, or like which ones are the most easy to implement. You let us know.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know in a week how grayscale is going for me, and you guys let me know how anyone that you decide to implement is going for you. And if there is anybody in your life that has been talking to you about like needing more boundaries or trying to set good intentions for the year, for the month, that are really trying to pull back from social media or take a break from certain habits that have to do with their phone, go ahead and send them this episode, and you guys can be accountability partners.
Just like we are. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Monday through Sunday, and we will catch you next Monday. Talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Monday through Sunday. If you're building a career, a business, or any relationships, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us.
With that in mind, we would be so grateful if you can spare 2 minutes to rate and review this podcast. Your reviews help spread the message to more people that work doesn't have to suck.
By the way, if you're looking for your community, join us on Instagram and TikTok at Monday Through Sunday Pod. We're all about connecting our like-minded listeners together. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about by sending us a DM. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you again, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.